Yogis, welcome back to Yoga Chats, episode 4, season 2. Who's my guest today? It's Beare. Our bank manager probably calls her Rachel Beare, but we know her as Beare. And Beare, you have for a long time, you've had a yoga studio. You're founder and lead teacher in the Yoga House. And we have, you posted something lovely recently on social media, and I really liked it, and I copied it and I stuck it into my weekly newsletter, and people really responded to it. And I think it surprised people. And I thought it would be really nice to have a chat with you.
Yeah, excellent. And I do appreciate, Greg, that you shared that post. For your listeners, it was regarding the fact that there are so many beautiful shalas closing down now. There's a kind of a slime trail from COVID, and it's just a kind of it's a very sad and I believe unnecessary thing, but people are under pressure and rents are an issue. And there's something about, I heard a very good analogy the other day, actually, about the B&B business, the bed and breakfast business, that if you have a bed available on Tuesday and nobody comes to take it, there's no guarantees that there's going to be 2 customers on Wednesday to make up for it. So the money we've lost because of COVID can't be remade. And there are people out there really struggling to stay open, and many who have closed as well, sadly.
Yeah, I heard of another studio in Dublin that closed this week. I used to have 2. I'm from Drogheda, and I closed the Drogheda studio. There were no rent holidays, and we were closed. So I just had to pull everything out, which, it was a relief at the time, to be honest. But it means that there are a lot of yogis that I can only connect with via Zoom. I might go up there one of these days and do a workshop. A pal of mine has a studio outside the town. But yeah, it's kind of lousy, and I think it's more serious than people think. And I feel, tell me what you think of this. I feel that in the yoga scene there's how would I say, like an obsession with positivity, and in a way it leads to a lack of honesty, which eats at the heart of yoga, that we need to always say everything is great. And it's hard times. How's it for you?
Yeah, that's beautifully put, actually, because there is, I did hear the phrase toxic positivity, which makes me giggle a bit. And it's true that, well, look, we know from our practice that the universe is, both sides of the story as one. And I think that if we only push a kind of saccharine positivity, we're not being authentic. And, part of the point of yoga is to connect to your real self. And we have to be honest and expressive about what's going on, because, the fact is that our shalas are communities. It's not that you, Greg, are Samadhi Yoga. It's not that me, Beare, is the Yoga House. It's we all are our communities, and our students make up those shalas. And without them, there is no shala. So it's very relevant and actually only logical to express where we're at, so that our communities can help us. And really and truly, you probably find the same, that you have staunch regulars, thank God for them, that are giving us positive feedback all the time. Were it not for that positive feedback and the fact that what we do is kind of vocational, it's a calling, we'd both be closed too. And, so we do need to reach out, and we're not bemoaning things. We're not doing the poor mouth. We're just communicating that this is the reality at present, and we need to change it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true, because I agree with you. I feel the last 6 months I have stayed open on the fumes that are the positivity of the regulars, the enthusiasm of seeing those people come in. Like I've always thought that teaching yoga is one of the loveliest jobs. I use that word very loosely, that people come, you know, the job satisfaction level. People come in, usually people who do yoga, you know, they do yoga to de-stress, but they're already, if they're stressed, they're aware of the stress. They're clued in, they're turned on, and they're coming to do something which is inherently lovely, fun, slightly giddy, slightly ridiculous, slightly comical, very profound. And you do it with them. And then at the end of the class, you drop them on the floor and you kind of read them a book, you know, you read them a story and they have a snooze. And then they go up and, you know, pre-COVID, they'd probably give you a hug and they'd say, that was wonderful. And off they go. And we might have a cup of tea after the class, or we might not. But it is, it's such a joyful thing. And that's what's been keeping me going. While I've been pedaling through the mire of the last 6 months. And people have said to me, and I've said this before, oh, you must be delighted. You're back in. It's all back to normal. I'm delighted. I'm back in. But where are you? So it's exactly as you said, Rachel. The people who come are the studio. They're the Shala. They're the community. It's not us. We're just kind of stirring the soup. We're just making sure that the loos are clean and that the floor is mopped. They actually, they are the body of the yoga studio. A yoga studio that is based on, you know, the practice and the belief in kind of the power of the powerful transformational practice that is yoga.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, to your point about, you know, yes, I am glad to be back, but where are you? I mean, what has happened, because we now also provide Zoom classes as well as in-person classes, is that there is a pull for a lot of people. In fairness to them, there's a pull for a lot of people to stay at home because of logistics and fuel prices and childcare and, you know, the freedom to be able to do some asana practice in your pajamas, you know. So I get it. I do understand why people, you know, who were maybe asking us and pleading with us, you know, please open, please open. I understand that, you know, their absence in the Shala is happening because of the convenience of Zoom. But really what we need, I think, to survive in order to keep paying rent is bums on mats. And as much as you and I and all the other good yoga teachers in the world would love to have our minds on higher things, bills need to be paid. And we don't, I mean, yoga teaching, like many other occupations and vocations, you know, they're not really very lucrative. And by the time our bills are paid, we are reaching into our own pockets. We're not really paying ourselves at all. And so if we haven't got a population, you know, or a heartbeat in the Shala, then the Shala is going to die. And, you know, not to put the wind up anyone, but it is kind of urgent, actually. And there's, you know, there are points in time where we're all thinking, should I take a second job? Should I take a third job? You know, if you haven't got the sort of 2-income luxury or owning your own house, it's a kind of pressure, and the energy does go. We have central nervous systems. We feel, you know, the energy does go on worry, and it would be lovely to just channel our energy into the higher things and be there as good guides. But we have to pay the bills, and, you know, it's still not back to normal. It isn't. There are more people on Zoom. There are fewer people in the Shalas. And I don't know where this is going to end unless we get help from our communities, really.
Yeah. And you know, the help from the communities, we're not doing a GoFundMe. I saw a studio in Dublin was doing a GoFundMe, and I sort of thought maybe that's a step too far. But the help is come back and do yoga. Yeah. Come back and do yoga. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not adverse to people coming back via Zoom. Now, I know what you mean. And like, I had a class recently, and my classes, I mean, I'd say like yourself, sort of as the it sounds crass, but, you know, the banner teacher, the head of the studio, my classes were always kind of jammered. And I was just, you know, I was used to that. But now it's gone to, there recently at a class, and there were two people in the room, but 20 at home on Zoom. And I did a survey there yesterday, and I'm getting loads of feedback, and it's so nice to get the feedback. It's so useful. And again, that'll probably give me 2 months of fumes to carry on.
Yeah.
Just
I hear you.
Finding money from everywhere to make sure that the bills are paid. But a lot of people were saying that, I'd love to come in and I do miss the vibe, but actually I find seeing the studio, seeing a few people in there, okay, I can't chat with them, I can't have the cup of tea afterwards, but I do feel like I'm still part of the community. So I'm not adverse to Zoom, but how I'd love to see the Zoom sort of phenomenon go, because I get it. A lot of people are saying, well, during the lockdown, I had kids, I got a dog, but most people are saying I'm either not living in the city or I'm not working in the city. So that's sort of, that's a struggle with me being a city centre based place. Mm-hmm. I should have, opened somewhere in West Waterford. But I would love to see people, maybe get a lot of their yoga on Zoom, but you can't be coming in and having the hairy eyeball of your teacher look at your back heel and tell you need to engage your inner thigh a bit more, and you need to, why don't you try this? There's a value in that. There's a richness in that, that you can then carry back into kind of maybe a, twice or 3 times a week class, and once a week you come on Zoom, and once a week you come in person, or however it works.
Yeah. And
we're not out of it. It's really, I'm really trying to reimagine what it is, because I feel we need to do that. I feel that this industry is an ugly word for yoga, but you know what I mean, because paying bills makes it an industry. It needs to be reimagined. We need to, because we're interacting with people in a different way now. What's it like for you?
What you say, I like what you said about, sort of reimagining it. I think that's needed. What it's like for me is that you're dead right in terms of the hairy eyeball comment. I love that. There are nuances and details that are lost for us as teachers as well. Even if we have a good monitor and we can see people clearly at home, you can't really truly see. And also, they can't really truly see us, even if we have a great camera, because the three-dimensional aspect of things, is missing. And there's a nice kind of, I find it okay actually when there's a nice kind of licorice all sorts situation going on, where there are students who might still do one of the Zoom classes, but then for their second or third, and for some of them they're great, there's people coming 4 or 5 times a week. But for most people, they're coming maybe once, twice, or 3 times. So if they're doing Zoom for one of the classes, for example, and then they are doing 2 of their other classes a week in person, that's fine. I find that to be most beneficial. And particularly the students who do, like, for example, on Friday mornings, we have a meditation class, and we go into various aspects of the philosophy as well, just to give us, something to chew on. And then we concentrate on that, and then we go into meditation. And that's ideal for a Zoom class. Ideal, because even if we do touch on a few gentle asana, I'm much closer to the camera. There are fewer details needed. We're not doing strong Vinny flow sequences or anything like that. So that's good if people are coming online to the meditation and then coming in person to the more asana-based classes, and indeed to the workshops. And, it's nice if people have the awareness. And generally, actually, my crew a lot of them do. They have the awareness of, okay, let's pick and mix here. We'll do the odd online thing. We'll do a few hybrid things. I only do the workshops as in person. Because although the camera and the Zoom facilities are a godsend in many ways, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to stay open over COVID. There's something about just having an in-person experience with no camera on anyone, where there are, I don't know, it just seems to me, I don't know if you feel this, but it seems to me that there's a gateway into a different dimension altogether when it's just human beings in person. So we do workshops as in person only, and then we do hybrid classes where there's both, and then we do the online. So I like when people do a pick and mix. I'm comfortable with that. obviously I'd prefer a completely in-person realm, but times have changed now, and we have to, you know, as old and crotchety as I feel, I have to go with the times. I can't be a Luddite anymore. But yeah, I mean, I find it okay. I think if people become, hopefully after this conversation, if people become more aware of the fact that in order to keep their beloved chalice open, they have to be there. I think it would be a better situation if there were more people coming in through the door physically, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I get you. Do you know, I did a workshop recently, and my plan was exactly that, to do it. It was, you know, live, in person only. You need to be there. The revolution will not be televised.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You people because like you, I'm teaching a long time, and I've people Zoom from the States, from Europe, and a few of them wrote to me saying, I'd really like to join, but I can't fly over. So I did stick a camera on, and I said, okay, it's only for if you live within 200 kilometers, you're coming in person. If you live in Donegal, Galway, or Philadelphia, you can Zoom. And you know, it worked fine. But I know you are then sort of gazing into the portal of the screen. But I think that's the new way. I agree with you. Like, I have people that I only see on screen, but they are people that I've known in the past, and I know their quirks and their cheats, you know. And so part of my interaction with them is what I'm seeing, but part of it is what we've historically worked on. So I know some people that the back heel just will not go down in Paramita Trikonasana, and they may have their camera off. Well, I actively discourage camera off, but let's say they're on their halls, and I do quite love messing with their head, saying, I can see your back heel. Where? What? So I'm not adverse to it. Also, I have to say, I love, like, Sundays, I just teach from, this is like my spare room. The bed folds up into the wall, pull a mirror across it, and it becomes the home yoga shala. And I love the ease of that. And I love the kind of, you're coming over to my house to do yoga now, all 20 of you. And some of you are in your PJs. I love it. We're having a bit of a yoga slumber party. Or it could be an early morning session. And again, I wouldn't go into Temple Bar to teach a session like that. And people wouldn't come in. But, you know, they'll all flock in when it's on Zoom. I do think it has great value. But the same people ideally do come in person. Pal of mine said it's a little bit, in a way, like the clubhouse in golf or tennis. You know, you don't always, sometimes you just go, you play tennis, but sometimes you play tennis, you go into the clubhouse and you have the chin wag with your co-yogis. And I think that is great value, because yoga is such a quirky thing to do. When you really dig into it, there's an intensity, there's a passion for it that yogis have. And so it's great to have a bit of interaction like that as well.
Yeah, agreed. It's very meaningful, I think. And I do think that, particularly for mature teachers like ourselves, it's not our first rodeo. We are generally going to attract students that are of a similar ilk, and people who are actually really willing to do the work, as they say in modern vernacular, people who are very interested in self-development. And you can have some wonderful, wonderful conversations together with people who are in that mind space already, and then you add some yoga into the pot, and it makes for a very kind of collective, community-based vibe where you have each other's backs, and it's damn hard to have a daily practice of anything good, of anything that's helping us to evolve. And we need each other so that we feel kind of infused with that support. And yeah, there's something lovely about that clubhouse thing where we can come together and not just have a yoga class, but also have a chat about it and reaffirm, most of our ideas are just sort of banging around our skulls like a pinball. It's really helpful to actually express ourselves and hear our own voices speak as we express ourselves to be understood by others. And we can help each other in ways that are, that are a bit more profound than you'd think on the surface of it. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It's a good space to be in when you can communicate like that.
Yeah, it is. It's something actually that I want to develop for the student body in Samadhi, also for myself. It's a two-way thing, to have more of a social aspect to it. I'd like to once a month have an event where maybe there's a bit of practice, maybe there's a bit of discussion, maybe there's just a bit of tea, maybe there's a movie shown, whatever. But people can talk about the experience of it, because I think that does have great value. Tell me about your kind of ethos a little bit. And while you are, my battery's about to die, so I'm going to just plug it in. So I'll disappear for a moment. But tell me why you set up the yoga house, and why you still do it, and why you're still doing yoga all these years later.
So I wanted to teach yoga, I guess, because initially I felt very called to do so. I don't like going too deeply into any kind of autobiographical stuff, but generally speaking, I would say, for a bit of history, I grew up in a very spiritual family, so it was absolutely accepted that I would follow that kind of path. So I know I'm blessed in that way, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who grew up in perhaps very academic families, or maybe very business-oriented families, and if the child announces that they want to follow a spiritual path, there isn't much support sometimes. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule. So there was I didn't have to meet any resistance or anything. I remember saying it to Dad, that I was thinking of doing it, and he was like, no problem. There wasn't even an issue, so. There
wasn't what about law?
Say again? What
about law?
No, there was none of that. No, none of that horror. So it was, so I was kind of hightailing it around the world for a while, and then I came home by Dad's request. There was a family thing going on, so I came back, and at the time, I'm Cork City originally, but at the time, because of Dad's occupation, he had been stationed in a place called Lismore in the county of Waterford. And so I came home to help him with the family stuff, and I ended up kind of staying. It's this sort of cliched story. I came home for 3 months and I'm still here, and so, I thought, I better work. I better, start to work. So I was qualified as a teacher by then, and I set up in it was a little art studio actually at the time. Stayed with Dad for a while, and then once I got my own place, I made sure from the very beginning that I would live and work in the same place once I moved out of Dad and got onto my own. Out of Dad's and got onto my own 2 feet. So from then on, I would rent places that I could live in and work from at the same time. My reasoning being, we don't make much money. I didn't want to have to pay 2 sets of rent, but also because I teach groups and one-to-ones, the thought of a commute, I just couldn't do it. And I know that many people don't have that luxury. So, I'm not... there's no shade on anyone who does the commute. I just personally, I don't think I could handle it. So I wanted to set up in smaller places, towns, rural areas, so that I could live and work in the same place. And there's something lovely about, and hence I called it the yoga house. There's something lovely about having it in someone's home or in someone's house. Right. And when I moved out of Lismore, crikey, 6 years ago now, and moved out here to Glenawillan out in the sticks.
Glenawillan,
yeah. Glown of Willen. So the Glen of the Mill. There used to be a mill here, and there's a stream in the garden. It is idyllic. It's absolutely beautiful. I wish it was mine, but renting it is the second best. But so there's something about it now. It was great in Lismore, but there's something about it now that we're more rural, now that we're even out of the town, that when people are coming to the classes and the workshops, there is a kind of a retreat vibe. So even though they're not staying the night in my house, they do get to go to a place that it's a little bit more conducive to accessing their own inner peace. I know that it should be that we access peace even in a noisy place, but that's difficult for people, especially if they're beginners. So it's a really nice way to sort of, have a little haven to come to when you're kind of embarking on your practice. And then for the seasoned yogis, they also love it. There is definitely that kind of state of retreating and just having a place to do your practice that's sacred and quiet and peaceful.
It sounds really, really nice. I'll have to come down and see it. It sounds really nice. And I get that. And that's always been my challenge in a way, having Samadhi in Temple Bar since 2007. It is Temple Bar, but it's the quiet end of Temple Bar, and it's in a little courtyard that's very green. And these days I find you'll occasionally, the only things really that disturb are birds out in there. Some of them are seagulls. I'm not a massive fan, but otherwise, it's not a bad sound. It's not the sound of parties, and occasionally someone frying eggs or burning their toast because there's lots of apartments in the area. But yeah, I think it is lovely to feel that you have stepped into another place when you're going to do your yoga practice. It's a special thing. So that's great. Fair play to you. You've stuck to that vision from Lismore and on. And did people follow you from Lismore over?
Yeah, they did. I remember putting it to them and saying, we're going to move from here. And I was kind of crossing my fingers and toes while I was saying it, because I thought, am I shooting myself in the foot here? Am I being really stupid moving out of the town? And also I felt for people who maybe weren't driving, and they liked the convenience of just, leaving their house, walking down the road a bit and coming into the chalet in the town. But actually I was pleasantly surprised. Everybody was just urging me, just go for it, go for it. And it turned out that many of the people who were coming to me anyway were also from outside of the town. So, those people who were living rurally, they're no stranger to jumping into the car to go to travel somewhere that's worth it. So, so it was great. It paid off really well. And the move was smooth. I didn't lose many people. And in fact, I gained quite a few more.
Of course. Yeah, well, I'd say, I found it when I opened the studio in Drogheda. And Drogheda is the largest town in Ireland, in case you didn't know that, a little bit of education. But it didn't have much by way of yoga at all at that stage. And I found, I love the Dublin crew, but they have, access to everything. And if you were to move, I remember in 2005, I opened on the north side, and then I moved to Temple Bar and lost quite a few people because it was an extra 5-minute walk, only 5 minutes each way in defence. But then opened in Drogheda, and people were coming from Forkhill, they were coming from the far end of Cavan, they were coming from beyond Navan, someone was coming from Castle Pollard, people would occasionally come from North Dublin, Skerries. They're used to travelling to get something that they want. It's a whole different mindset. I don't know if that's changing now. That's, 15 years ago plus, but it was really nice at the time. And tell me, final question, and then I'm going to let you go, because I appreciate your time, and you're a busy person, I know. I know that you have always tried to run your business sort of ethically, following the yamas and the niyamas with yoga. Tell me about that. How's it been?
Yeah, it's interesting, because over the years, the yoga house has been going for, I think, 15 or 16 years now. And over the years, I've become a little bit more clear yeah, like we do in everything that we're practicing regularly, not just our own practice, but our teaching practice as well. And then the sort of business end of things when people are inquiring and ringing us and, sending us emails and stuff. And I've become a little clearer that when people are contacting for the first time, I make sure that I mention that it's not just a physical class. I say from the get-go, there will be chanting, there will be a deep dive into the philosophy, the yamas, the niyamas, there's breath work, there's obviously some physical movement, because with any kind of holistic practice of, where you're journeying forth into self-improvement, it is important to have a good posture. It is important to be able to breathe in a way where your energy is regulated. It's also equally important to have a bit of swadhyaya, a bit of self-study, and keep your emotional responses in check, and to notice on a subtle level if you're suppressing or ignoring or running away from anything, and instead try to sit with exactly what is. So, as long-winded as it sounds, I try to make it as clear as possible from the get-go to people what they're getting into, because in the past, I've found that people will come in expecting something like Pilates, and we end up chanting in Sanskrit, and they run a mile. So it's really important to be utterly transparent with people, and the ethics of the practice as well are very important to me, as they are to you, as they are to both our collections of students, in terms of, we do need some kind of companion practice to help us through the dizzy and dark times. And if you're not kind of diving into yoga for the beauty of its wholeness, you're missing something. So we do keep to the studies as well as to the physical aspects. We dive into the sutras a lot. We go into the Bhagavad Gita a lot. And there's in particular the philosophy class on Tuesday, which is in person only, and also the meditation class on Fridays, which is online, and particularly in the higher level classes and the workshops, which are for all levels. We do kind of infuse even the physiological aspects with the philosophical aspects, so people really understand themselves through the medium of yoga. So I try to stick to that as much as possible. And, my students know me for someone who is teaching yoga as fully as I possibly can in these modern times, and still make it accessible. So I'm not expecting that everybody knows all their Sanskrit verbs and tenses or anything, but we do keep, we keep things as full, the big picture of yoga, the whole picture of yoga as possible.
Wow. You are a rare teacher.
Thanks very much.
And I'm listening going, I need to calm down. That is really exciting. I really hope that things, that we get through this tricky time as previously discussed, and things grow and grow for you, because they should, because that is something really special that you're doing.
Thank you.
So, Beare, thank you so much for having the yoga chats today. It was really great.
Thank you too, Greg. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.